Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Sean Kitzman from the Rebuild Project in the Performance After 40 community. Hold on one second. I need to move my phone up. Sorry. So, on today's call, we are going to do something a little bit different than what we've done in the past. I want to look at pelvis movement and talk about a movement that I see people missing in their pelvis movement quite often. And this contributes to low back pain. It can contribute to knee pain. It can contribute to foot and ankle pain. In theory, you can chase it all the way up to the neck, but we won't do that at this point in time. So, your pelvis goes forward and back. It rotates. But it also goes side to side. And this side to side, along with the pelvis hiking and dropping. So if I bend my right knee, my pelvis should drop. If I bend my left knee, my pelvis should drop. And I should stay in plane, meaning that the pelvis should move like this. It shouldn't do this, which is what I often see, right? So it'll drop down. And this is a very common movement pattern that people miss. And it is so either this or this. When I bend my knee, my pelvis drops down. You can see it, maybe you'll be able to see it from the back a little bit better as well. So when I bend my knee, my pelvis drops down. When I bend my knee, my pelvis drops down. So one of the ways that you can test this out is go back to the wall, and we'll do this. So we can go back to the wall, and I can put my pelvis rib cage installed on the wall and shift to my right. And am I able to keep my pelvis on the wall? And then also notice how my head stays where it's at. And then am I able to bend my right knee and have my pelvis stay on the wall? And then bend my left knee and have my pelvis stay on the wall. And also my rib cage. What will happen oftentimes is that sometimes, and I'll over exaggerate it so you can see it, as I shift my pelvis to the left, I'm sorry, to my right, what will wind up happening is that the pelvis will come off the wall. And when I drop, oftentimes when I drop, people will just go do this and they can't get their pelvis to move, right? Because they're not used to dropping their weight into that. Now, this has a huge carryover into your low back. There's low back muscles here that are that load when the pelvis, when it shifts to the right, my my right low back muscles and side muscles, my obliques, they stretch while this guy is a little bit more passive. And when I bend my knee, this guy stretches and this guy contracts a lot more. You can actually see if you look at my chest and look at my upper half here, what you'll see is you'll start to see like how I start to create this almost like comma, right? Now, there's another thing that we can look at as well, and it's a single leg stance test. And while I don't love the single leg stance test, about 10 to 15 years ago, in the last 10 to 20 years, has gotten way over analyzed. But I'm going to relate this back to a exercise or a movement that I do quite often. So what happens is when people try to do the single leg test, they will their pelvis will drop a little bit, or they don't have good balance here, and this is a huge part of our balance as well. If our pelvis goes to one side or the other, and if you like look at my shoulders, and if I could create a rectangle down here, by and large, uh, if I'm standing and my pelvis was to go outside of my shoulders, I would be way off axis, meaning that my pelvis, ribcage, and skull are unaligned. And what happens then is that I have to stumble this way to catch myself. And as a species, we're terrible at doing this. So one of the places that I like to now, you could go back to the stuff that we just did on the wall and start to work on just those motions. I've done that a lot with people in the beginning to help them to understand how to move their pelvis in this plane of motion. You may not be able to, like we said, drop that knee down. One of the ways you can help this is with your arm above your head and reaching up. So you can go back to the wall and try to feel yourself staying on the wall while reaching up. Here, same thing. I'm here and I'm reaching up. And when I do this, I should feel a stretch here on that tissue. The other thing that we can start to look at as well, so when you're walking, your pelvis shifts in this plane of motion as I take a step forward and I get into it's before I take a step forward and push off. There's this little kind of leap of faith where my pelvis goes over here. Again, I'm way over exaggerating, but I want you to be able to see the motion, right? So there is a bit of a single leg balance here, right? As I'm going, and my body's ability to be strong as my leg comes off the ground, as I'm walking forward. So as I'm walking forward, before I get to push off, there's a moment in time where I'm balancing on my leg. And I think one of the most beneficial movements that I've found, along with some of this stuff here, to help people to get better control of their pelvis when they're on a single leg, is just step ups. And I'm going to go grab a pole here really quick so we can use it as balance, which I think is a really good idea for us to do. So as I come back, when I come back, I think it's a really good idea for us to use something. Now, it doesn't have to be a pole. You could use a wall, right? But are you able to bend your knee, keep your pelvis over your foot, and not start to have your pelvis drift out? Meaning that what happens is, as we get more fatigued with this movement, because there is some glute movement in here as you're extending your leg. So what will wind up happening is, as you get fatigued, you'll start to feel your leg drift a little bit more. And I think this movement, this step up, is a fantastic movement to help you to build ankle stability, knee strength, and also hip strength, particularly as you're going from this bent knee to straightening your leg out. So if you have low back pain and you're not able to crack your low back pain, like meaning that you're not able to solve the problem, you might want to look at, what does my pelvis look like in its movements in this plane of motion? Now, again, we can put our arm above our head and just kind of drift out to the side to start to lengthen the tissue here. Because when we don't move in these planes of motion, the tissue adapts to that thing and it will shorten up and become tighter. So, and then the next thing that we can do is we can start to look at how is our pelvis, how's the control of our hip, how's the control of our ball and socket here. Do we have good control of that when we're on one leg? And oftentimes people don't. So can you balance? Can you be up here on one leg, bend the knee, and then come back up? Can you allow that knee to drive the motion? And then also, when you're extending the leg, do you get your glute to contract? Because oftentimes people don't, because they're not actually getting the full extension of the knee. They'll do this, and then they'll only get to here. They won't get into full extension. And when you get into full extension, that's when you get into that glute contraction. So I just wanted to throw that out there a little bit to help you understand one of the big key missing movements in the pelvis, and then what we can do to start to correct it and start to build some strength in those ranges of motion. And then also, a lot of times, what needs to happen in the body is your body needs to adapt. It needs to be educated and trained on those ranges of motion. And oftentimes we've missed this plane of motion. I've worked with a lot of runners and triathletes, and I can't tell you how many, particularly cyclists, because you're stuck on the seat, how many cyclists can't drop the pelvis. They just rotate around. And then this also has carry out down effect into the knee and into the ankle. So, yeah, do me a favor if you got this far in the video and you found that this drill here helped you out, comment below and let me know what happened. And then also, how was that step up pattern? How was that single leg pattern? Do you feel like you have control of your pelvis there? Or do you feel like, your pelvis is really kind of all over the place? All right, everybody. Hope you're all well, and we'll see you guys next week.